Don't look at my hair. It's fucked up. Super. It's fucked up. Don't even look at it. Don't even look at it. All right, welcome back. We are doing part 2 of the Mass Hysteria Iceberg. If y'all don't know, I guess you don't have to watch these in order, but I'm gonna not explain what's happening. We are now on to Tier 5, entering into the abyss, if you will. For those of you who don't know what we're doing, this is, like I said, the Mass Hysteria Iceberg. An iceberg chart works at the most known and or not so rare cases are in the top, all the way down to the bottom, which the bottom is the most obscure, demented of the chart. So let's just jump right in. Medieval nunnery hysteria refers to during medieval Europe. You know, a lot of these have to do with medieval Europe too. Medieval Europe in the 80s are seemingly to be the most just like crazy time, I guess. This is when a bunch of nuns started to have convulsions, screaming, claims of visions, claims of possession during the medieval times, and nobody can explain why. And the scientific, psychological, perspective says that it is, a shared illness due to stress and the strict living conditions and the religious factors. And again, this all just kind of is chopped up to whatever. But I guess if you believe in that kind of thing, I mean, I'd be freaking out. Like if, I believe some crazy shit. If my friends are like, dude, I'm having visions, I'd be apt to hear them out, to be honest. This kind of relates to the satanic panic a little bit because it's kind of the same. They dismiss it in the same way. I'm not saying that either one of those is true. I'm just saying that if it is, depending on what you believe, crazy. I don't even know where I was going with that. Emirates Flight 203 was a plane meant to fly from Dubai to New York, which then was quarantined at the JFK airport because a bunch of people were reported flu-like symptoms from an unknown source. This is often cited as a possible mass hysteria outbreak because it does take place on a very small group of people confined to a certain area. There was no real reason or cause for this, whether it was a real illness or a mass hysteria. It just kind of happened. So it's kind of a gray area depending on who you ask. The 1998 East Java ninjas. Boom. This was fear in Indonesia that there was a sorcerer responsible for the deaths of cattle. Rumors of black-clad ninjas spread very quickly as these quote-unquote ninjas were vigilantes attacking and even killing people that they thought and speculated that were sorcerers. Sorcerer versus ninjas. Never thought it was going to happen. Needs its own episode. Fucking sick. It's actually not that cool because then eventually people got so scared of the ninjas that other people started to form their own groups and to attack people who thought they were ninjas, and then 307 people were killed. This is a crazy trifecta of violence. First we have the sorcerers, the ninjas, and then the mob. This is a huge case, I think, of mass hysteria because first you got the people thinking it's a sorcerer. Then you got people thinking about ninjas, freaking out about that to the point where they're going to kill them. So they make their own groups. I like it better when the mass hysterias have to do with crazy shit like that and not like babies being sacrificed. That's a reference to the first episode. Check that out if you haven't. We talk about ALS and babies. Not at the same time. Just different. You know what I mean. Sick building syndrome. SBS. This is just everyone when they've been done with work. I'm gonna put it out there. This is when you start to experience, or not you, but there's cases of people experiencing like dizziness, headaches, nausea, any kind of like illness symptom that is associated with being inside for too long. People say it could be ventilation issues, pollen issues, mold, stress, the lighting, all of it, air pollutants. I thought this, when researching this, I thought this was kind of dumb because it's like, who doesn't experience that? Like, when I'm at work for too long, I get a crazy headache. I'm tired. I feel damn near ill. I'm tired of everything. I think this is just kind of like, dude, I wonder if I could pull that. Be like, hey, I'm experiencing SBS, sick building syndrome. Let me go home. All jokes aside, these are real symptoms that are experienced at a specific building. So again, it's like you go to this one specific building and you start to feel these things. It doesn't have to be work. And then again, they don't have any real medical source for these symptoms. They just start happening. I wonder if there is something to be said here about like placebo or like a classic conditioning type thing, where you're associating that, your body associates the building that you're in with those feelings. Kind of like how people have, like when I used to lay down in bed, regardless of if I was tired, I will be tired. I know it's like a really bad example, but like when I go to work, when I get to work, I'm stressed out just because of how much stress I experience there. So it's like, I don't know. Just an interesting food for thought, I guess. The San Diego sailor sickness. This refers to an event in 1998 where a bunch of U.S. Navy members were in San Diego and they started to experience the inability to walk, dizziness, nausea, illness, symptoms with no real cause. Again, that's how all these end. I'm going to tell you right now. Every single one of these, no real cause, or it's an allegation or something. So, that's it. The 2016 clown panic. If you don't remember this, that shit was crazy. I remember seeing, dude, oh my gosh. So I was still in high school when this happened, and it was basically people started dressing up as clowns and like stalking people or hanging outside their house or hanging out at parks with like weapons and other things, and were going like attacking people or scaring people. This was everywhere. I have a memory, at least I think I do, of coming across somebody dressed up as a clown at like middle of the day with my friends and I in like a cul-de-sac or something. It could have been another video. I don't know what's real anymore. And it was everywhere. People were terrified. And then it died down because people started shooting people. People started to retaliate. Like, you're like, oh, you're going to come at me? Well, I will fight you as well. And then they'd be like, oh, it's just a prank. I'm coming at you with a machete, but it's a prank. And then people would die or get hurt. So, it was crazy, and then it died out really quickly. Tier 6, strawberries with sugar virus. When I was researching this, I came across two different examples. One was in the U.S. in the 70s. People would just eat strawberries and sugar, and then they would experience illnesses like nausea and other stuff. I think, honestly, it probably could have just been, it's a lot of sweet shit. I don't know. The second event was in 2006 in Portugal. There was a TV show called Strawberries and Sugar that one of the main characters became ill with some kind of sickness, and then people who watched the show would then get sick with the same illness that the main character had. The Seattle windshield pitting epidemic. This took place in April of 1954, and this one, there's like a lot of information about this, but I think it's kind of stupid. During this event, people started experiencing like little chips and little dings on their windshield, and it started to spread weird rumors from like fleas burrowing into the glass to radiation fallout from nearby nuclear testing to vandalism. And there's no real cause or what's the word I'm looking for? Source of all of it. And I just think it's like the fact that people were so upset about it and there's so much coverage on it, it seems kind of dumb to me, because it's like, maybe because in the 50s cars were built differently and you're getting rocks and shit thrown at your windshield because you're driving and it's leaving little pinholes and shit. It seems like I'd never heard of it, so that's cool, but like, kind of dumb as shit if you ask me. And don't be coming at me saying, oh, it caused so much extra issues and it was such a big deal and it's so scary for people. Like, Cold War, political unrest or whatever it's called, like so many other issues. Like, if the worst thing that's happening to you is that you're getting little chips in your windshield, your life is pretty good. I think it took just a little bit more critical thinking and it would have been fine. For social contagion, I want to read it kind of as a quote just because I think this is a really important topic for today. Social contagion is the rapid spread of behaviors, emotions, attitudes, or even symptoms like stress or illness through a group or network similar to a regular virus, but instead of a physical virus, it's a social contagion spreads through mechanisms like imitation, peer pressure, and digital sharing, influencing individuals often without their conscious awareness. So the reason I wanted to read that is because I wanted to make sure I got it right. I see this everywhere. I'm gonna be real. I know I'm just some little YouTuber, and I don't have any crazy backing. But like, first, what kind of social contagions are being purposely put into the world? I know this sounds very schizo and very like conspiratorial, but I don't think it's wrong to think about where your own beliefs come from, because if your beliefs are based on some stuff that you found on the internet, and see the irony here, not great, especially when it becomes your whole identity. And I think we see a ton of that today, tons of that, so, like social conditioning to the max. I think, and I'm not going to go into like super personal beliefs or anything because I don't want this to be that channel, but I don't know, I just feel like you should be careful about what you consume on the internet. The Great Fear of 1789 took place in France, I would assume, because I don't know why I'm hesitating. It took place during the French Revolution. Peasants and stuff were concerned that and feared that the aristocrats and other groups were poisoning things or destroying crops on purpose. And a lot of this is chalked up to poor living conditions. The economy was trash. I mean, you don't have a revolution when there's good shit happening, you know? So I think, well, a lot of people think that it was just chalked up to that kind of stuff. Peasants believed that certain armed groups and the aristocrats of the day were planning to destroy crops and villages and spread famine to destroy people's lives even more than they already were destroyed. So poorer people were afraid that they were being sabotaged. I don't know how to say this. This word, leg twitch. This one's really dumb. Basically, some girl had some muscle twitches and spasms in her leg muscles, and that's it. Fan death is a crazy concept to me. So this took place in South Korea and a little bit in Japan, not to the same extent. But the concept started in South Korea as this idea that if you left mechanical fans on, like plugged in and on when you weren't using them, specifically like on in a room that you weren't in, you would die. It was like a weird bad juju type vibe thing, and that was it. Like, and like so when it comes to like the satanic panic from the first one, I see how people with certain beliefs in like their Judeo-Christian beliefs, people believe that Satan is going to do bad things. Satanic panic. I get that. I can see how people believe that. Fans, like the thing that blows air that people have been using for my whole life. I know this took place back in whenever, but fans, like the evil fan, like what is Big Fan doing when I'm not around? That's what I want to know. Big Fan is coming to kill us. It's like a cryptid. I wonder if they would fear that about Dyson's bladeless fans. Those are the coolest fucking shits ever. I want one so bad. But on a real note, some people believe that the South Korean government created this conspiracy to curb electrical costs and expenses. I mean, it's so crazy that I almost believe that it was orchestrated. Does that make sense? Because there's no way enough people were like, yeah, organically, through this person who told me, fans are bad. There had to have been some kind of weird psyop going on there. North Carolina cheerleader seizures. In 2002, a girl had a seizure, and then a bunch of other people started experiencing the same kind of seizure. This is just kind of like not as cool, for lack of better words. A lot of it was just that this girl had a seizure, and then a bunch of people at her school were afraid of, quote unquote, catching the seizure or catching her illness. Now, a bunch of people started having these seizures. Some people believe that it was all, placebo, working yourself up kind of thing. However, the one weird thing is that 3 of the students were in separate classrooms. People find this weird because usually you would see stuff like this happening in the same classroom. And this was multiple people in different areas in different times and stuff. I don't necessarily think it... Yeah, that's it. I don't think that's cool. We're at tier number 7. Getting down there now. The Wurzburg Nunnery Panic. I don't know when this took place, but I'll throw it up on screen when and where this took place. But basically, a nun, Sister Maria Renata, initially refused to admit a young girl who was having convulsions and seizures. And shortly after this, other nuns started to experience these same seizures and convulsions and other, dare I say, hysteric behavior, and believed it was demonic depression, demonic possession. God, I keep saying that. I'm not keeping that. I'm not redoing that. These episodes included screaming, foaming at the mouth, trance-like states, weird juju type going on. Then Sister Maria was coerced into convincing that she performed witchcraft, and then was beheaded. The accounts say that she was coerced against these alleged crimes against the church, and then she was killed for it. But after she was killed, everything stopped. I think if this is real, maybe the girl having seizures was maybe testing the nun or something, and then when she said no, she was like, I'm gonna do some witchcraft stuff and get this other lady killed for not letting me in to the club, so to speak. I don't know. I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead, but that could be... It's a fun little rabbit hole, I guess. Conversion disorder is a real issue and not really a fake thing or hysteria, I guess. This is an actual condition people have. This is when extreme psychological stress and trauma actually start to manifest in physical issues such as blindness, tremors, paralysis. And the reason this is on here is because it's not caused by any actual brain damage. So it's not like you were hit in the head or something, but like a PTSD, I witnessed something horrible, abuse, psychological issue, not allowing things to function properly, I guess. That sounds very interesting. That maybe you experienced such a horrible trauma that I can't walk anymore, or my eyes don't work, or I have seizures because of my trauma. I can see that to an extent. That's interesting. I want to learn more about that. The Mad Gazer of Mattoon, I'm putting them on the screen just in case I can't read it correctly, was a mass panic in 1944 that in Illinois, a bunch of people started to report that they saw a mysterious figure leaking toxic gas, which caused people to faint, experience nausea, all sorts of horrible things. Even though nobody was ever convicted of a crime or no attacker was ever found, a lot of people chalk this up to wartime stress, and I can't help but think there's probably some truth to that. Because during World War II, there was so much crazy shit happening that if it did come out that this was an actual... Well, I guess I can believe both ways, but I can see how people could convince themselves that some horrible terrorist thing was happening during the time, but I can also see, a foreign government trying to poison people during that time too. So, again, I guess it's kind of up in the air. The writing tremor epidemic was in the 19th century. A bunch of school kids developed a tremor that prevented them to write. I kind of think that this was just kids being kids, but what do I know? Kosovo student poisoning? I don't know how to say that. Refers to an event in 1990 where thousands of students reported symptoms of everything we've already talked about, believing that they had been poisoned. Investigations found no toxic agents, despite having over 8,000 people experience the same symptoms. And it's kind of hard to imagine 100,000 people experiencing the same thing with no real cause. So this was all chalked up to mass hysteria. However, when I dug a little deeper on this, they did some like blood testing and some other medical exams, and a lot of the paperwork had quote unquote gone missing or simply never existed. And I do think this is kind of sus because there are theories of maybe some kind of toxic agent or some kind of weird testing going on during that time with toxic agents. And maybe there's a conspiracy here, and maybe there's like a bigger picture. If there is, let me know, and I'll do like an episode on it, because if there is, that's a crazy rabbit hole. But I could see, I'm so down in the depths of conspiracies at this point that you could tell me that George Washington is still alive underneath the White House somewhere. Crazier, more horrible things are true, you know? The Monkey Man of Delhi. I don't know if this accent is racist or not. I can do a pretty solid Indian accent. But this was a crazy rabbit hole about a cryptid in India. This refers to accounts of an ape-like creature that was terrorizing people in India. This took place in New Delhi in 2001. A lot of people were experiencing accounts and encounters with this, quote, hairy figure with red eyes, metal claws, and sometimes a helmet attacking people at night. And all of the accounts of this person seem to be pretty, or this being seemed pretty consistent with the whole ape being guy. Some say that he had rollerblades and a big metal thing on his chest with buttons on it. And it kind of makes me think that there was a spaceman or some kind of weird time traveling ape dude that, you know, started fucking about. Because think about it. Think about this. Let's lock in. Lock into this conspiracy. What if during some weird Cold War type experiment with the governments of the world, they were trying to figure out time travel or some kind of weird space-time shit, and they were testing it on monkeys, right? And they found like this one species of monkey that could potentially handle space travel or some weird kind of time travel, hooked him up to all these machines to protect his brain and vital organs. And something happened, and it sent him through the space-time, and he ended up in New Delhi. And his brain is fried, and he's all sorts of fucked up now. I don't know, could be kind of a cool thing. If it was a show, it'd probably be pretty cool. I kind of want to draw a picture of that. I'm going to see if I can do that. If not, here's one I found online, maybe. There's a lot of names in here I can't pronounce. I'm really sorry. The Tang laughter epidemic. I'm sorry. This basically was a bunch of school students started laughing uncontrollably for no reason at all, and they couldn't stop. And the school itself that all the students were at had to shut down because of it. And this might sound sort of like, you know, every other thing that we've been talking about. However, over the span of 18 months, this epidemic spread 100 miles to a bunch of different schools, and over 1,000 people were affected by it. 1,000. And again, when you get up to those numbers, kind of like the Kovask or whatever, that one, that's a lot of people. Now, it's not nearly the same as the one we were just talking about, but like still, that's a lot of people and such a huge range. And maybe there was like some weird cover up that happened, and there was like some gas agent in the air, and then the air dispersed it that far, like a weird laughing agent or something. I don't know. Or it was just, I mean, dude, 100 miles? That's a lot for a rumor to spread. And this took place in the 60s, so this is long before the internet, right around Cold War time. A lot of weird research going on with after World War II. Just saying, a lot of weird shit. Could be cool. I shouldn't say cool, but interesting. We're on to tier 8. The Moores Ford lynching. Now, this isn't necessarily like a mass hysteria. It's more of a just, oh, this is a bad thing that happened and then people were afraid of it. Basically, in 1946 in Georgia, 2 African-American couples were killed and in a hate crime event. And the worst part is that nobody was ever held accountable for it. This obviously led people to being more afraid of the KKK and the Klan. So it's it's not necessarily a mass hysteria because I feel like, yeah, there's a racial crime that happened, a hate crime is happening. I would be afraid too, honestly. Like, I feel like it's pretty standard. I don't know why this is on this. I guess it's like mass hysteria in the sense of like a specific group of people being afraid of something or having something happening. But I don't think it's hysteria. I think it's more of like not in the sense of like delusional, I guess I'd say. Like, it seems pretty valid. The June bug epidemic. This was where 60 tactile workers experienced all these other symptoms that every other mass hysteria thing started happening, including like rashes, and they blamed it on bugs, but it was never really determined that it was bugs, and it was just kind of chalked up to really stressful working conditions and working environments, causing people's nervous system to obviously then stress out. I think this one is super stupid. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it's like the first Taylor Swift, it seems like. This guy, Franz Liszt, I don't know, was a composer and a pianist, and people would faint and scream and cry and just like were gushing over him and thought he was like the hottest shit ever. And okay, people do that with every celebrity ever. I mean, look at this. Look at that. That's happening today. This is a mass hysteria then, because this is actually crazy. Culture bound syndrome is basically, so take like a mass hysteria moment, but it's fueled only around a very specific culture who believe in the same cultural significance. So for example, like if there was a urban legend about a toaster monster, and there was a large enough group of people who really believed in this toaster monster and started panicking about it. So it's like a panic that is culturally specific. So maybe they're like I would say even like a satanic panic is kind of like that on like maybe a bigger scale because Christianity is so broad. But like Satan is like a Judeo-Christian belief. So it's more specific to the Judeo-Christian population to be afraid and panic over that. So you could see that with like, think of any cultural group and any other folk stories, that kind of stuff. I think like I know a little bit about like Native American cryptids, like with like the skinwalkers and stuff. It's like even you see me even I was like hush about that. Like people might panic over those things who have grown up in a community that believe those things to be super real. The Hollandwell incident. This was an unexplained event in the 80s in England at the Hollandwell showground, and all these children there started to experience the same kind of symptoms, and nobody could figure out why. Some people believe that it was like pesticides potentially, or some kind of contagion due to the fields nearby, but again, there was no credible or not enough evidence to pinpoint it. Rapid onset gender dysphoria. Now, this is an extremely controversial topic. I understand that. I'm not claiming to believe this. I'm not claiming anything. I'm just reading what the internet told me it was. Basically, this says that adolescents, particularly those female at birth, tend to develop gender dysphoria or start to identify as trans due to social contagions, social groups, peer pressure, you could even argue the internet, and not really experiencing the dysphoria or the transgenderism of it that they just kind of think they do. This is not a real diagnosis, and this is heavily criticized and very controversial. And that's all I'm going to say about it because I don't want to get in trouble. I'm going to read this one again. Somatization, the generation of somatic symptoms due to psychological distress and then often seeking medical help for them. Which somatic, if for those who don't know what it means like the body kind of, not in relation to the mind in the sense of like as its own thing. I don't fully understand this. It's like there are like somatic disorders and stuff, and I'm not entirely sure how it works. I think it's like you become so stressed out that you start to convince yourself that you have issues that you don't have, and convince yourself that you have like medical problems or something. I don't really know. It just it seems kind of like a hypochondriac thing, but I don't really get it. If someone could explain it to me a little bit better in the comments, that would be very much appreciated. Tier number 9. Final tier. Going on to the little home stretch here. Not a lot on this one, but we are just chug-a-lugging. Drapetomania. In 1851, American physician Samuel A. Cartwright hypothesized that the freeing of American slaves was the result of some kind of mentally ill condition. That living as a slave was better than what African Americans could provide for themselves, and that any African American that didn't want to be a slave, want to be free, was suffering from some kind of mental illness. Obviously, this is not true. Obviously, I don't believe this. Super racist. Just reading off the internet, guys. The 1891 New Orleans lynching. This was when 11 Italian immigrants were killed for the accusations of killing a police officer, even though this was not true. There was no evidence to suggest that they were to do that. This was fueled by fear of the mob and the mafia, and fear of immigration and people's view on Italians at the time. And it is just kind of sad, honestly. Mass suicide in Demmin. So at the end of World War II, hundreds, if not thousands, of Germans committed the self-delete once the Soviets defeated the German army. Now, it wasn't all soldiers. A lot of them, from my understanding, were civilians, families with kids, because how the Russian or Soviet Union military was portrayed. They were told that the Soviets were animals, barbaric. They demonized them, and people believed that when they started storming their town, that horrible things, really graphic things were going to happen. It kind of shows how insane wartime propaganda is, and just propaganda in general. Like, it would be interesting to see like examples of how intense that propaganda. I mean, I can't read German, but how intense that would have been, because to take your own life, let alone take your kid's life, because you thought dying was better than whatever these people were going to subject me to. Kind of nuts. There are actual accounts of this happening, and if you do read through some of them, they're extremely violent and graphic and horribly depressing. So I'm not going to go into super detail. That you can do that in your own time. I'm not doing that. Super sad. Really sad. Strasbourg incident. I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to talk about this, but I'm going to do it anyway. In 1349, a community of 2,000 Jewish people were burned alive for accusations of spreading the bubonic plague. This is kind of where the poisoning of the wells kind of comes from, I think. This was obviously fueled by anti-Semitism of the time, and that's everything I'm going to say. This next topic, the Barari deaths, if I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sorry, is super interesting to me. It's really sad and really intense, but it's an account of this family who committed the unalive by hanging themselves in their house in a ritualistic way. And there are journals and like notes and stuff left behind by the family. And I'm going to do a video on this eventually, but nobody really knows why they did it. There was an 80-year-old grandmother who couldn't walk, like she couldn't hang herself like the rest of them, so somebody strangled her to death. And the authorities believe that it was like some shared psychosis type thing. If you remember, I think it's called The Madness of Two, earlier in the Iceberg. It's that French one. It could be like on a case of that, just on a big scale. I know when a bunch of mentally ill people get together, who suffer from very extreme mental illnesses, they can kind of feed off of each other a little bit. So maybe it was something like that. But the fact that it has to do with like some kind of ritualistic belief, and there are like notebooks that go into detail about the family and their beliefs and stuff, that rabbit hole is probably dark and super deep. So with that being said, I think I'm gonna do an episode on that coming up soon. But that is the final topic on this iceberg. Something that I can't help but notice, though, is a lot of these mass hysteria moments, they all share the same symptoms: nausea, dizziness, rash, headaches, fainting in some instances. And I want to talk about stress a little bit. So there are so many things that can happen to your body because of stress. I mean, stress is a killer. It kills people. So I'm not trying to chalk all of it up to stress. If I sat here and thought about something, I could convince myself that I have a stomach ache, I have a headache, or something hurts. I mean, from my understanding, the somatic disorders is kind of like some kind of disconnect between your body and your mind. And your body obviously is capable of a lot. I mean, the mind is as well, but I don't know. I feel like there's some kind of connection to be made there. But what I'm saying is, could it be, is that like a pillar of mass hysteria? Like, are those symptoms like, okay, this is a case of mass hysteria because almost every single mass hysteria event, not all of them, but like a lot of them have these symptoms, and maybe the symptoms kind of do vary a little bit, like the nuns that were having seizures or visions or whatever. Maybe like that's because they were fueled by different religious things. I don't know, but I just noticed that pattern, and I wonder if it's the body, if there are certain things the body can convince itself that it is happening. Like my mom will stress out and give herself hives, like a rash. Or, I mean, I get stressed and I'll give myself a headache. I have anxiety. It makes me nauseous, or it gives me a headache. I wonder if, like, if you think too much and then you start to give yourself these symptoms, and then other people start to catch on, do the same thing, and reinforce it, and then more people continuously fall into that rabbit hole, kind of like that French one, the madness of two. Maybe it could be the madness of 1,000. I don't know, but I wonder if your body could, feed off that energy, I guess. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys like the iceberg style videos, they're a little quicker and a little more fast paced. I'm more than happy to do more of those. Or if you have any specific topics, or you want me to go down any specific rabbit holes that we talked about in these last couple of videos, just let me know. I do apologize if I got anything wrong or I offended anybody. I didn't mean to. I know some of those topics were pretty heavy and controversial. I don't want to perpetuate hate or harm. I don't believe that's a good thing. I don't like it. With that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I really, really appreciate all the support. If you guys could like and subscribe and all that, I'd appreciate it. And I will catch you in the next one.